Blue skies means fun days. Helping skydivers with tips and techniques about safety, training and fun jumping from those who know.
Hi, can you teach me to swoop?
Who are you?
I'm a cool skydiver. Can you teach me to swoop?
How many jumps do you have?
25.
Don't you think it is a bit early to start swooping?
No.
Listen buddy, I think it is a bit too early for you to swoop. What size canopy do you jump?
I've been jumping a 230 rental, but I bought a new canopy and I have it here with me.
What size canopy did you get?
I bought a brand new Velocity 84. It looks really cool. I want to swoop with it. Can you teach me to swoop?
You have 25 jumps, and you bought a Velocity 84.
Can you teach me to swoop with it?
No, you will kill yourself. Do you want to die?
No. I want to swoop. Swooping looks cool. I want to look cool. I want to be cool.
Anyways, have you used your front riser to fly before?
Front riser, what are those?
Downsizing is one of the most contentious subjects at a drop zone. That magical transition from student canopies well over 200 square feet to something a lot cooler. To explore this subject, the value of downsizing charts and the need for quality coaching and guidance, I had a chat with one of Australia's leading canopy pilots and coaches, Cameron Jarrett, otherwise known as Putz.
The people that I see and the people that talk to about downsizing, stuff like that, I spend a lot of time with. I'm here every weekend. I see a lot of people, and the people at this drop zone who are looking to downsize and looking for stuff like that. I know their abilities, you know what I mean? I see what they do and I know what they're up for, I know what they can handle, I know what they can't, because I spend a fair bit of time at this drop zone.
Being a devil's advocate, I asked if a downsizing chart provided a tool as a help for management and to offer some protection for the rather naive.
Risk mitigation, so we can't get sued. Maybe that's it. So they've got a backstop to say, well, look, you're not up for it, so you can't do it. Like having a downsizing chart and having things that you've ticked off, to me, makes people just go and tick those things off without wondering why they should be ticking them off. You know, like if it says that you must be able to do X, then people will go out and just try and do X until they can fulfill that quota, and they don't spend time learning how the parachute flies and stuff like that, you know, like they just go out for the goals and they say, okay, yep, these are the things that I have to do, I've done them, so I'm all good. When they're probably missing a lot of background into how the parachute flies, what their inputs do, you know what I mean? It's definitely a case-by-case basis, because you can have two people trying, the same body weight, trying to downsize from the same canopy to the same canopy. And the mindset of each one of those people is completely different. One of the people I'll say yes and I won't even worry about. The other person may get a blatant no. You know what I mean? It's to have a chart and to have something. I just think, yeah, the thing that bothers me about that is just it's a couple of boxes that I have to tick, and once I've ticked them, I'm good. Like, I mean, obviously I've been coaching since 2008, and I've got a lot of students, and you get a lot of students that tell you the answers that they want you to hear. You know what I mean? That aren't really the answers they should be saying, but they know, you know what I mean? So you get a lot of that. With the downsizing thing, it has to be, I believe it's got to be a case-by-case thing. And if there is any reason to have a chart, it would only be for the people, I don't want to say problem people, but, you know, like, for the people who just want to recklessly do this because they think they're ready for it when they're not, it's probably just a thing to shut them down, you know, and give them a hard no and let them know that you mean it, when realistically you can just say no.
So, acknowledging that downsizing is not a box-ticking exercise, but rather learning to fly a canopy and how to milk performance from it, we had a chat about canopies.
The manufacturer builds a parachute, and the characteristics that parachute has is obviously built into the wing. Wing loading tells you how spicy that parachute is going to be with your weight underneath it. Like if if you're jumping like a Sabre, let's say a Sabre 3, 150, if you jump that at a wing loading of 1, it's still going to do everything that the manufacturer describes it's going to do. But if you're jumping it at like 2.1, it's going to still do everything, but a lot more exaggerated. So a relatively docile canopy with a lot of wing loading can become not a docile canopy. You're not going to turn a Sabre 2 into a Peregrine. To me, wing loading just tells you this is how the parachute's supposed to fly. If you're a little bit heavier than that, it's going to be like this, but a little bit faster. People put a lot of emphasis on those numbers. I don't know what to say about that. I hate the whole wing loading thing. The numbers, because too many people get hung up on the numbers. You know, oh, I'm 1.25, or I'm 1.6, or I'm and it's all about the number. It's like, well, it's a good guide to how your parachute's going to act when you're flying it, yeah. But that parachute is still going to be that parachute. You know, like a katana is still going to be a lot more aggressive than a Sabre. You know what I mean? Like whether it's a higher loaded Sabre and a lighter loaded katana, it's still a katana. You know what I mean? It's still going to do what a katana does. It's just not going to do it as fast as if you load it up. We have student-sized canopies for a reason, because when you learn to skydive, there's a lot going on, and you need a nice, stable canopy so you don't, number one, so you don't hurt yourself, so you learn the fundamentals, all that kind of stuff.
Another situation that often occurs is when a lighter than average person wants to downsize more because of their lower weight.
Okay, a petite lass comes up to me and says, you know, like, I've got a 150, but in 10 knots of wind, I get blown backwards, and, you know, I can't jump, and this happens, and, you know, if it's 20 knots, I don't even bother going to the DZ. It sucks, but that's what you've got to do. You know, like, you can't, just because you're light and you're small, you can't just say, okay, I'm 50 kilos, so, you know, I could probably jump a 135 and survive. It's not about, you've got to do the time. You've got to do the time, and you've got to do the time on the sizes. And skipping sizes and stuff like that only makes learning at the end harder. All you're doing is making learning how to fly parachutes harder for yourself, because instead of learning at a slow rate, now you've got a lot going on, because you're now flying a smaller parachute that's a lot faster. You've got to process everything a lot quicker, and you don't have the ability to do it.
One of the big challenges for novice canopy pilots is to realise that they have to manage their flare, as Putz explains when we started talking about people reaching for the ground.
Reaching for the ground is just an improper flaring technique. If you're flaring and, you know, like, you start putting your right hand out because the ground's coming and you want to stop yourself, you can stop yourself from hitting the ground by just not doing that. You know, so if we go back to basics, learning the correct flare technique, if they had to continue to flare symmetrically, they'd probably land pretty much where their trajectory was. You know, the whole side gust thing. You know, like, I got hit by a side gust and away we go. It's like, there's no side gust. You created the side gust by doing that. You know, learning the right techniques is, in a sport where the ground hurts, you should probably spend a little bit more time.
In many of the discussions I've had with Putz and other instructors, the subject of mindset is always the most prominent.
The biggest one for me is mental attitude. We're not psychologists, and I'm not saying that, but you have to know who you're talking to. You have to know, number one, the abilities, their currency, and just how they are. Like, I could have two different people in a class. I could say the same sentence to both of them. One guy would go up and improve, and the other guy would probably kill himself. You have to know who you're talking to, you know, and what they're like. One mindset deserves one answer, one mindset deserves another. Your ability may be ready for it, but your mindset just isn't. I mean, I've got a lot of students that, like, I've taught a lot of people, and I know through spending time with them, I know when I can give them this extra little bit of information and when I can't. I mean, I'm not saying anything about any other discipline, but what we're teaching people could change the rest of their life. You know, like, one bad landing and you're off to hospital. We're teaching people to come in contact with the ground. I believe the biggest thing that that says to me whether they can downsize or not, apart from the ability factor, is mindset. Mindset's probably 60% of it. You know, if they're not smart enough, you know, some people will never be smart enough, you know, but you've just got to give them a bit of tough love and say, mate, you're not ready. Like I said before, every parachute can hurt you, you know, so currency is a big thing. Knowing your limits, knowing your conditions, not going past that, and making the right decisions at the right time. And all of that comes from jumping regularly. Currency helps you make the right decisions in a split-second decision kind of instance, you know. If you've had a big break, and this comes down to a lot of people talk that, I've had a break, you know, so I'm upsizing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. If you've done 1,000 jumps on that canopy, and if you are familiar with that canopy and you can fly it good, you're probably better off to come jumping back on that canopy because you know what you're in for. I'm for and against both options. Like if you've had a long break, maybe pick something bigger and just realise you're back in the air. There's a good argument for it and there's a good argument against it. And again, it comes down to the person. You know, like somebody like Macca can go away for 3 months, come back, jump on exactly what he flies and be good at it. You know what I mean? Like there's certain people that aren't like Macca that I wouldn't suggest that to. When you get to a certain point where you can fly reasonably well, number one, you're smart enough to make your own decision. If it's been a big break, like a year or two, yeah, maybe do a couple of jumps on a bigger canopy just to realise that you're back in the air and you're back skydiving. The result of having a bad landing is often going to hospital, and then you spend 6 months out of the sport because you're injured, you know, and that, number one, makes you on current. All the people that you jump with have now gone to this level and now you're chasing, and that puts you in a dangerous spot again because you're trying to keep up with all the people that you used to jump with, and they have more currency, they've got, you know, more talent now, that they've done a lot more stuff, and you're trying to race up to try and catch up to them, and you know, like you're putting yourself in that position again.
So what guidance does Putz have for those intermediate standard canopy pilots?
Best advice is try not to get injured. Be disciplined. Like I said before, I teach my students, if you're not there at the right height, I give them a height. You know, like this is the height that I don't give it, like we work out the height for the right canopy, for the turn they do and everything like that. Boom, we've got a number. You're not there at that number, you don't go. There's no, I'm a little bit high, I can bring it down, or I'm a little bit low, I'll just change it so I can fit it in. No, the way to survive this is to go and when you're on, you know, and the discipline that you put into being on far outweighs a shitty turn that you do to fit in from a higher altitude or a lower altitude than you should have gone. All you're going to salvage from a turn that's not at the right height is a shitty turn.
Having realised that there is a lot to learn in canopy piloting, the big question is which coach is best?
Most canopy coaches are good for a certain reason. You know, like I wouldn't recommend anybody sticks with the same coach forever. Number one, find a coach you gel with. Not everybody gels with every coach, you know. So you've obviously got to gel with your coach. Everybody has a different way of getting the same message across. You know, so I could say it one way and another coach could say it another way, but just because he used a little bit different words, it may click with the student a little bit better, you know. So we're saying the same thing, but maybe the way it's put across is different, you know. So I wouldn't stick to the same coach, so I wouldn't tell anybody else to stick to the same coach. Don't go your whole skydiving career with one person, you know, like everybody's got great things, you know, like and it's like what we're told in when we first start skydiving, you know, like everybody has an opinion, take what you need, and, you know, like we're taught that from day one, you know, so.
As we finished our discussion, I asked Putz for his thoughts on what to say to someone pushing their luck.
I learned this when I started jumping because I was that person, you know, like I was that person that wanted to swoop from day one, and so I got yelled at by everybody. If you need to talk to somebody, number one, don't do it in front of everybody. Don't do it aggressively. Take them aside and say, hey man, when you finish packing, come and find me. I'd just like to have a chat. You know, like it's got to be like that, because if you approach someone and it's like if they have a sore ankle because they you know tripped over or they turned a little bit low or something, chances are that they know they've got a sore ankle. Nice and subtle, let them know, you know, like, dude, you're a little bit low, you're getting a little bit low, you're regularly a little bit low. You know what I mean? It's not an aggressive conversation. It's just the second that you put that aggression, I guess, for lack of a better word, into the conversation that you're trying to have with that person, they'll just turn off. Their mind just turns off, and you're the last person that they want to listen to. If you find that somebody's done something wrong, there's a tactful way about letting them know. You know, and that just comes from being around it long enough to see what happens and know how to approach somebody.
Thank you, Cameron Jarrett, otherwise known as Putz, for your insightful thoughts. So there you have it. Don't rush. The time you might spend off injured simply isn't worth it. Take your time, learn to fly your canopy and do all the hours and the sizes and what you need to do, and make sure you have fun. See you next time on Blue Skies Fun Days. For more tips and techniques, click subscribe.